Hello and welcome to the Famous Musicians Podcast. This is part 2 of my interview with Paul Kerekes, episode 39 of the show. We're getting into a discussion about the difference between learning stuff in school and your mindset when you're in school versus your mindset when you're out of school. So enjoy. Hope you enjoy it. There's a link to the Patreon. It'll be on this and on every other one, and certainly consider contributing at any point. And for the thing that I try to do a shout out at the end of every episode, if you're listening to this when this premieres today at 5 p.m., if you're interested, there is a remote performance of Richard Strauss II's famous operetta, Die Fledermaus, the bat. And a good friend of mine, Kathleen Monson, has been trying to get this off the ground, and she could use more butts in the digital seats. In fact, this is infinitely scalable since she doesn't have to do it in a physical venue. Of course, the trick here is, of course, that it's everything is oversaturated with everyone else's projects and trying to find someone to listen. But I think it's a good use of your time were you to spend tonight, if you're in Eastern Standard Time, watching this performance, which will be tonight at 8 p.m. That is all. Thank you. Okay.
Well, you know what it makes me think of too is just how being in a school environment like that can feel so fantastical. It's just so separated from reality in that sense. It's just, I think when you're out of that environment and, hopefully that student will, realize this too, maybe when they're out of school and they're really practicing, I don't know. It's just, you have this different set of values. It's not like, I felt in school, there was this, it really was this bubble of music taking place. And then when I moved to the city, it was just all, everything kind of, I guess in a way I'm saying in school, we sort of place ourselves above a lot of other commercial music. But then when you get out there, you realize it's just all the same. We're all doing the same music, thing. Yeah. And it's completely, mixed and we're on the same level. And it changes the way I think, at least the way I kind of approach things, or even how I practiced piano. I felt a little bit less like I need to do this by the books. This is something I could sort of feel out. And exactly. Do I react emotionally to it? Is there some kind of response happening? That's really what I'm interested in too. Yeah. But it's hard to realize that when you're in school for a while. And, I think I learned that I had a friend who was in grad school with me, and he had spent 6 or 7 years in New York City between, I guess, his master's and what he was where I met him at Yale. He was doing his doctorate. And it was, I think when I realized that, oh my God, he was working there for 6, 7 years. And then he comes back and he would always just tell me in seminars just how strange that was to be in this room where we're all commenting on, one composer would go up at a time, play something, and then we critique the score, and exactly what you were saying before, these little things. It just felt so unnatural to him, having been in the real world for 6 or 7 years and then coming back to that. It blew his mind. And I didn't have that realization. It really meant something to me until, a couple of years later when I was like, oh, that's why he felt that way, So, there are benefits. We need to be in an incubated environment, I think, like that, to really craft our music, to experiment, to try different stuff. It's harder to experiment, I guess, if you're putting stuff out there on the public concert scene in New York. But, or it just feels different, you're really putting it out there, when you have a concert at Carnegie versus the auditorium at your school. So, I mean, for that reason, it's good. And, that's why we do it. But I think a lot of people maybe continue that mentality out of school. And I think it's very different. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just we all focus on the wrong things, because it's like I
Yeah.
think about that with there's a gentleman.
Is this just going to be a huge gossiping session?
No, but
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
But well, I considered him without a doubt the best tenor at MSM.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable. And by all the laws of conservatory rules, he was like
Mm-hmm.
unbelievable voice, and he did. But like, does anyone talk about the entrepreneurial aspect, or what you should do so that you can be singing art songs or being in operas?
Mm-hmm. Right.
No,
Not really. No. Right.
So where's this guy now? And I don't want to get too specific, but he sells used cars. I'm not saying where he sells them, but he sells used cars. Now
he had to pivot career-wise to
make
it work.
So obviously, what I'm mentioning this as a cautionary tale to say, like, well, if you're not really thinking about these other aspects, then you might end up like him. It's not true. I'm sure he has a satisfied existence selling used cars. Far be it from me to it's the same conservatory mentality that I'm assuming, unless you're doing your art, you're not a real person or something like that.
Right.
But I can't help but think, though, that there's some sort of a correlation between a bunch of people who had these amazing operatic careers. They're giving you advice about technical stuff, but not a whit of advice about how the arena has changed. And
yeah, it's true. I think only in the past 5-10 years they've started implementing those things into the curriculum more.
Yeah.
There's entrepreneurial classes. Well, at Yale, and like the last year I was there, I know at Manus they've changed the curriculum a lot to focus on ways of marketing yourself via social media, and just like talking about like writing contracts maybe or something. It helps. But I think it also just and related to your story, I think it does come down to this like personal level too of maybe your own discipline, your own commitment, your willingness to just kind of like buckle down and kind of get things out. So it's kind of both sides of one is like you can learn these things and we could have classes, and I think they help, but I think ultimately it is also a just like a personal thing to just really kind of step it up, But it's tricky. It really is.
Yeah. Oh, so
it's tricky, everybody.
It's tricky.
Yeah, and especially now, with all of everything going on and not really being able to freelance as much and do performances and
just another total non sequitur, which I'm sure will lead perfectly into you playing your pieces. I recently got a book from the Freeport Memorial Library, which was a novelization of the comic book. There was also one movie. There was also one movie made of it as well, an animated movie, of course. Planet Hulk. Are you familiar with this?
Planet Hulk. I'm familiar with the Hulk. Is it related? It's the same.
It's very related. It's
world.
Very related.
Okay. I've never heard of Planet Hulk though.
It's fantastic. So basically, what happens is, I'll be very quick here.
No, take your time. Hear about it.
So Hulk is a massive liability to everyone, to all the superheroes. He's always getting angry and destroying everything,
even himself.
Correct. So Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four and Iron Man. Like the reigning, trillionaire and genius of the Marvel Universe, design a spacecraft, and Reed Richards tricks the Hulk into thinking that he's going to go save some planet, but he really ends up just on this capsule. And then once he's on the capsule, he explains to Hulk. He says, "Listen, I'm sorry I had to trick you, but basically you're just a huge liability to everyone. So we're going to send you to this planet with like not a lot of vegetation, so you just can't harm anyone." Because
you'll have a lot of space, you can run around.
Yeah, the point is there's a whole bunch of vegetation,
anybody.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so the Hulk gets angry that he's being sent there. He's being put in his crib. He's being put on timeout, and he gets angry, and he gets so angry that instead of going to the planet he's supposed to go to, he dismantles the ship. It goes through a black hole, and then he finds himself on another planet in another universe. Where there's a group called the Sicarson which are warrior people. And they said, like, we need, if only there was some sort of a Messiah who was like a warrior who like got really angry and just, for this warlike planet. He would be the fulfillment of our prophecy. And then the ship just crash lands.
It was just like perfect timing.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's fun about this is, so it's an exploit of the Hulk's ability that the angrier he gets, the stronger he gets. He doesn't necessarily get smarter, but he just gets more powerful. And there's limits to how strong he can be on the Earth, because there's a point at which it's just like it's just dumb. It just doesn't make it. Like if you can hold like a battleship, like it's a nutcracker, it's just kind of dumb. Right. And it maxes out at a certain point. But on this world, he can bleed. There's materials that can restrain him that he can't break out of, like they're called shadow forged stuff.
Wow.
And so. He can't break out of them as he is from the Earth. But what happens is when he finds out he can bleed and these things are shadow forged, he gets angrier. And then he finally breaks unbreakable materials, this whole thing. And so he levels himself up. So he becomes the like Messiah of this entire world by just getting incredibly angry.
Yeah.
And there's this like gladiatorial arena where people are supposed to fight. And basically he just completely
decimates everything. Yeah.
And there's this tyrannical king who came to power through force. And what does Hulk have? Nothing but force. So of course he can. So this king really ticks him off, and basically all of his problems are solved in this comic by getting angrier. he just becomes more and more powerful. So then he basically through sheer anger, he just ends up saving the day and becoming the savior of this people. It's great.
Oh, wow, that's so interesting. And
yeah.
What I don't know enough about Hulk. Does he? What I was wondering was, when he is angry, does he assume a different consciousness when he's the Hulk, or like is he still okay? So he has like no control over.
He's kind of dumb.
The anger that he's like dumb. Okay, yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Well, that he can be like quietly sarcastic with like monosyllabic things.
Yeah.
Sort of like my 2-year-old. But the only one that's like both worlds. But the problem is with the one that's both is he can't infinitely scale his power. But it's called Grey Hulk. And Grey Hulk is the genius of Bruce Banner with the Earth level strength of the Hulk.
Okay.
So in Grey Hulk,
that's the ultimate combination right there.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. So he's pretty smart. So look, if he has to like scale his power more, he can build like mechanical stuff. But you actually, for Hulk, when Hulk needs to get stronger on Earth, what happens is if there's some crazy enemy they're fighting, usually Tony Stark builds him a new suit that'll like help him levitate and increase.
Okay.
But the beauty of Green Hulk is that that there are no limits. It goes exponentially. That he will never he can get infinitely more powerful. Yeah,
that's crazy. I gotta look at. I've never even seen the Avengers or any of those.
Yeah, there's a lot of, it's fun.
Tony Stark is Iron Man, right?
Tony Stark is Iron Man.
Right.
I mean, with the Avengers stuff, they stick to the main storyline. So there's not a lot of like interesting spin-offs. Like that's one of my favorite interesting spin-off things, like Planet Hulk. There's a couple other ones that I find pretty interesting. One I have to tell you about, not now because it would take too long, but Marvel Zombies is fantastic.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
They all become zombies. So, yeah.
Now, let me ask you a question.
My show.
How do you feel? While we're on this topic about Marvel, because I think the way I haven't read too many of the comic books, but I've interacted with it in that it's popping up in film more and more. It's becoming common to be making films now in the Marvel universe. Do you like the films? Do they differ from do they stay close to the comics? Do you feel this?
Just give me a second. I'm just realizing we've been talking for a long time, right?
I think so. Yeah. It's probably been like, actually since we've been recording, probably a little like 40 minutes maybe.
Oh, that's great. Cause what I can do is, and I'll just keep this in. But this is so darn long. I'm just going to split it up into three little.
Yeah. Use it all.
Great. and I'll just say like part 1, part 2, part 3, and I think because that makes the most sense because
Sure.
why not? I have to crank one out a week anyway, so
Yeah, leave people hanging.
yeah,
They'll
right.
if you want to hear more about the Hulk.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. This is
Wait
great.
for
This works out great for me.
Yeah,
Sorry.
not that I
Okay,
have
so
much to contribute to this. I feel bad. I'm not. I can't
no, not at all.
talk about it as academically as you can. I love it. I love
Oh, I
hearing.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, I felt like that with Robert Sirota talking about video
Yeah.
game music. That
Oh
was
no.
fun.
Right.
That was really fun.
That's such a wonderful interview. I love that, and he's such a nice person too.
He's great.
It was great to hear about his background and everything.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So the
but
Marvel
yeah.
movies, yeah, I like them.
I saw something on I saw some interview with like Martin Scorsese where he didn't quite I think they've become so popular in the public, these Marvel films, clearly just a lot of success. People are interested in seeing these, but they haven't quite broken into the category of like being recognized by the Academy, receiving
Right.
Oscars, that kind of
Right.
stuff. Do you feel that those movies are worthy of the level of cinema that the Academy recognizes? I mean, should Robert Downey Jr.,
No.
No. Okay,
No.
so you're on Scorsese's side. That's interesting.
Scorsese was of that opinion too.
Yeah, he doesn't really view it as like, well, I don't want to, again, Martin Scorsese, if you're watching, I apologize. I'm taking your word.
I'm sorry, Marty.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Martin. But I don't know exactly what he said, but I think it was something to the extent of that he didn't consider them, real high cinema, really part of the
they're not
oeuvre that he considers the great works of cinema to be.
Yeah, I mean it's like a really, really well done pop song.
Yeah, right.
And comparing that to like Tom Waits' Bone Machine. Or like some really interesting indie thing. It's like it's not the same thing. Like
well,
I'm gonna get a lot out of Miley Cyrus, but it's not gonna have the pathos of like,
Well, that's it. That's the word that's kind of interesting. Is pathos, or maybe sincerity is another good word, or something like. Does that find its way into commercial works as well? And
right.
I mean, to be honest, I think those are like the best kinds of artworks, whenever it's like something that is commercial and dealing with the public, but it's saying something that is on this, as you said, kind of like more indie, what we associate with indie, or a kind of idea that is a little bit more
off kilter
from what the public would normally expect.
Yeah,
like last night, the Truman Show was on TV, and that's a perfect example of taking just this like big budgeted movie directed by Peter Weir, just like huge, but then taking this idea from Jim Carrey that was just really ahead of its time, like talking about surveillance, and even it applies to social media to some extent, that we're just like being watched constantly. And I think those are the best kinds of works. Like, if you could do that, if you could reach the public and really talk to people, but at the same time be saying something that has like sincerity and pathos and
I mean, there's
oomph behind it.
There's just so much like
that's where you got to be.
Yeah, it's not because they have this unlimited budget where they can get anybody. It's not because of that. But it's stuff like they engineer these things. It just so clearly seem fabricated that these little cliffhanger things so that you have to watch the next movie. I just don't feel like those sorts of movies deserve to be recognized in that same light. And it because it just comes off as it's a soap opera. It's like a Netflix show.
Interesting. Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, I guess, okay. The other,
I don't have an opinion on it, by the way, just because
right.
I haven't really seen enough. I mean, I've seen, growing up, I was actually really into Spider-Man. That was one of the
the animated series?
Actually, not the animated series. Believe it or not, this could be really risky to say. It was the actual like live action, at least the first one with what's his name, Tobey Maguire or something.
Oh, I love those movies.
Yeah, I mean, it was great. And I've always liked Spider-Man because he was a kid from Queens, and it was like, I don't know, just something about New York. For me, it was always Spider-Man and Batman as well.
Okay, the Spider-Man and the Batman movies are
Yeah.
in a separate thing because it's like
The Batman movie is the greatest one, though. The Tim Burton Batman movie is just
Tim Burton, but I mean even the the Christopher Nolan stuff. I mean,
that's true.
They're all just great freestanding
Right.
films.
And how about that new one coming out too? I'm excited to see.
Is that the Robert Pattinson?
The Robert Pattinson one, which by the way, he's fantastic as an actor.
Yeah, he's great. Really, and everybody made a decision when they did Twilight that was going to pay their bills. And it didn't have to be the greatest thing. It didn't have to be the most serious picture, but they knew that they could feed their children.
Right.
And I think there's no shame in that.
Yeah, no.
You know,
exactly. Yeah, again, I think going back to what we were saying, this like division between.
Yeah.
The only way I could describe it is using the word commercial. I don't even really know how to describe that kind of art, but art that's kind of for the public masses. You know, it's as you said, kind of more engineered feeling. Versus this side that is a little bit more artisanal, independent feeling, lower budget. And that's mainly what he has decided to do post Twilight, or stuff where it's really low budget. I don't think asks for that much money to do it.
Oh, you know who the other one who does that is what's his name? Daniel Radcliffe.
Yeah, perfect example.
Everything is weird, indie, super cool.
Right.
He's an underdog.
He could have just done Harry Potter and like stopped and retired.
But in a certain way, like that sort of freed him up to do all these crazy, silly things for a fraction of the money that Harry Potter had.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
he's a perfect example too, and it exactly the same as Robert Pattinson in that it was this movie kind of for a younger audience too, you know?
Yeah.
We should have like a film podcast. We'll just talk about movies and
this is great
stuff. It's true though. You and I enjoy a good movie.
Yeah, well, I think that, you know, the music is a way to so as a paradigm for life.
Exactly. Right.
But there are people who see music for the as a goal in itself. But I think that's sort of it's stupid. It's really stupid. It's a language to convey what everything that you're experiencing as a person and the sum totality of your experiences is not music. It's you're using music to express it.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And everybody has their own outlet to express the art inside of them. You know, for filmmakers, that's, you know, film, visual, cinematography, whatever. If you're a cook, it's food, you know, being a chef or something. I mean, we all have different
What was it?
tools.
This is a compliment, so I can use his actual name, but Alex Sherling. You know Alex Sherling, right?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
I love Alex. Tell him to say hello, by the way.
Oh, absolutely. I have to give him a phone call today anyway.
Okay.
But he told me one time, because I made some statement or whatever, and he had said in response to that, he's like, Joe, you have to remember something. I was like, what? And he was like, everybody is an artist. And I went, okay. And he's just like, that's it. Like, that's what you need to understand. Because there's this, you slip into this way of thinking where you're like, well, I'm doing my music here, but this guy's he's a janitor, or this guy is
You separate yourself.
Like, no, everyone is an artist.
And that's going back to what I was saying about school. That is exactly the way I should have described it, which is that I think we in school have this feeling that it is this artist separated from you know, everyone below us, or I don't know if it's like an above or below thing, but
go slip into that from time
to
time.
Yeah, I think I don't know, it's just an outcome of the unusual environment that we were in school. It is a unique thing to be a musician in music school. But I totally agree with Alex. Yeah, that's how I shifted to that mentality when I lived in New York City for a couple of years.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
So what are we listening to?
Okay, so I thought I would play a couple of those solo piano pieces that I was saying in the beginning, right? I wrote them about 9 years ago now. They were the first pieces I wrote when I got to grad school, and also post this, what I'm calling my Opus 1 piece, Hail. So it was kind of like this new territory I was in, and it was exciting to kind of explore that a little bit, you know, dealing with process, but making it feel a little bit more unpredictable at moments. So in the first piece I'm going to play for you, which is the piece, by the way, is called Vantages for solo piano.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
And you know it, yeah, you've played some of them yourself.
Yeah,
Exactly.
the move to keep things whole.
Right.
And all,
Yeah. So at the moment, right, there are 3 of them, but I feel like it's this collection I'm probably going to continually add to, like, over the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So these are the first 2, which I wrote very close to each other. The third one, which I'm not going to play, I didn't have enough time to practice it.
Sure.
Was written a few years later, and that one even has kind of a different sound. So these first 2 are special to me because I think they were that, it was this time of just starting grad school and sort of figuring out, how to operate within this new language that I had set up for myself.
Yeah.
But it deals with a process that I had always dealt with, which is basing, kind of like using my reaction to, like, a poem or a painting or some kind of emotional impetus for the compositional process.
Yeah.
So like that has